Good morning. I am going to start with a story. I was born seventh of 9 children. My youngest sister in this picture is 1, and my older sister is 16. We're actually smiling, although I'm not sure why, because my parents made us have this picture taken on Halloween Eve, which seemed not fair. And this is me, if you hadn't figured it out. And I actually have a sister in the room, which I don't really know where she's sitting. Katie, where are you? Oh, there you are. There's Katie. Katie's on the far right, on the bottom. Oh, hi, Katie. So being one of 9, our house was filled with lots of love. But in order for my parents to retain their sanity, we were raised as a clan. We did everything en masse. And my parents' mantra was efficiency. My mother had to plan our meals a week in advance. And dinner happened at 5:30 every night. And if you weren't in that chair, you risked an entire evening without food. And don't think about any food substitutions. This is not a restaurant. Every morning, breakfast was at 7 a.m., and our breakfast counter had 9 little orange juice glasses, perfectly sized with the exact same pour in every glass. And unfortunately, as one of 7 girls, there were a lot of hand-me-downs. And most notably, my least favorite was the gray plaid rag that I had to wear to private school. And I was so desperate to individualize my uniform that I actually sewed an inside pocket into it so it could have a place for my chapstick and my change. But what I didn't realize at the end is I would have this huge outline that I had hand sewn, and it was visible to everybody on my little pleated skirt. And so it was just this attempt to always want to individualize. And then when it was time to go to school, we would actually, my mom would sit on the edge of the bed, and we would stand in line. Seriously, we stood in line to have our hair braided, and we got the exact same braid. One size fits all. And so I think if my mother were alive today, she would find it a little more than humorous, and maybe my fate, that I'm standing here talking about of all things personalization. But I'm here today to talk about it because Resource believes that personalization will radically alter our future. We believe that because the next 5 years, we're going to see a dramatic shift from tactics to strategies, where personalization is no longer just about a technology solution, it's about a strategy for business. And we think it's so important that every company should make personalization their goal. And that's why we made this entire summit focused on this topic, because we want you to be more prepared for changing consumer expectations, we want you to be more competitive today, and we want you to be more equipped for the future. So thanks for taking time to join us here today in Columbus. We really appreciate it. This topic might make you ask, haven't we heard it before? Hasn't this been talked about for years? And the answer is yes. Matter of fact, 20 years ago, in 1993, Peppers and Rogers wrote this book, One-to-One Marketing. And Business Week hailed it the Bible of new marketing. The vision was so grand about what was possible for personalization. But 2 decades ago, we didn't have the technology that we have today to make it possible. And then you hear a little bit about CRM and traditional database marketing, and isn't that stuff we've been hearing about? It never really has fully worked. It's been a partial solution. And that's true, because it's been viewed as a technology solution. It's been siloed. It's been compartmentalized. It's been too expensive. It's usually been a one-size-fits-all approach. And for most marketers, it's had declining ROI. So it hasn't really been the ideal solution. If you Google personalization, you will find that our industry has woefully overcomplicated it. You will get 40 million search results on Google if you Google personalization. So we've overcomplicated it, but we've actually oversimplified it. It is not merely a salutation, getting your name right, and it is certainly not just a recommendation on Amazon. We actually crafted our own definition, and we think that personalization can be really simply put. It's about individualizing for competitive advantage. So then you say, well, individualizing what? 4 dimensions we think personalization matters: the communication we craft, the products we make, the services we deliver, and the experiences we orchestrate on behalf of consumers. And when I started really digging in and immersing on this topic, I realized there wasn't really a strategic framework to think about personalization. So we created one. So I'm going to take these 4 dimensions and put them off to the side of this chart. And what I want to just touch on briefly, and I could talk about this topic, this particular chart all day, but my colleagues won't let me, is just the evolution of personalization and what's really going on. It's characterized by a macro trend many experts refer to as demassification. And I'm going to explain very briefly what that means. It means how we make stuff and how we consume has been dramatically, or actually, it's been shifting over many decades, where it used to be all about mass markets and mass production, and that was the norm. And then the Japanese invented lean production. We could be more efficient about how we make things. And then we started to segment our market. So things started to get a little bit smaller. And then there was the introduction of craft production, where we make things in smaller batches, more with an artisanal emphasis. And we started to look at audiences in smaller batches, more like niches. And then we've arrived at an era called co-creation. We're actually focused on smaller communities of interest to make this possible. And then further out into the future, and we're just starting to get on the cusp of this, and I'll talk about more in a minute, is smart production, where supply really does meet demand and markets can truly be won. But before we get into smart production, I want to really start with co-creation and illustrate kind of where we are today with a brand that's actually been on a trajectory of personalization for more than a decade. One of the most recognized mass brands in the world, and that's Nike. So some of you might remember this mass market sneaker. It was really all the rage in the 70s and even into the 80s. But Nike has evolved quite dramatically from this particular sneaker. One example is clearly the unveiling of Nike ID in 1999. They made it easy to actually customize your own shoe. Now this is actually more of a today's representation, so the interface has become much more sophisticated. But more than that, it actually surpassed $100 million in sales 4 years ago. After Nike ID, Nike Plus was launched in 2006, which was a transmitter in our running shoe, essentially communicating to an iPod, making the training experience more and more personal. And after that, Nike Plus actually became a platform. It's a platform, you may or may not know, that fuels not only FuelBand, but an entire ecosystem of Nike products. And what's really cool about it is that it's making the workout experience more and more personal. We can now quantify, visualize, and see a very personalized regimen. We can actually compete with friends, get rewards, and share successes. So the entire regimen of working out is getting more and more personal. And it's not really about the product anymore. It's about the entire experience that goes around the product, which is what makes it so cool. So what will Nike do next? We don't really know, but this is a guess of what's coming, that we will start to see Nike Plus embedded in a very sophisticated way into our clothing. We won't even need a device. And maybe further out into the future, we'll even have it embedded into our skin. Now, we might laugh, and we might even scoff at this, but the truth is a lot of researchers who are studying this particular topic believe that consumers will risk surgery in the next 10 years in order to supercharge their brains. It's crazy, but it might not be that far out there. There's a lot going on that's advancing our world in many ways. When we look into the future, we know that it will be one of screen ubiquity. It's already happening today, but screens will be everywhere. They'll be everywhere. They'll be cheap, they'll be flexible, they'll be disposable. We'll even be projecting screens onto our hands. We'll have screens in our contact lenses. And they'll have enough intelligence and connectivity to see our face, to scan our purchase history, and instant message us in the moment. Maybe one really great example of a new kind of screen is Google Glass. Have you guys seen this in the news? It's kind of hard to miss lately. A lot of news, a lot of press around Google Glass, an entirely new type of screen, and I believe it has the potential to be the ultimate second screen. Why is that? Because it's actually going to let us see a stranger and know who they are. It's going to allow us to take a picture without a camera, as we know one today. It's going to allow us to actually have translations on the fly, and we won't even have to reach for a device in order to do that. Now, I want to actually show you a video so you can appreciate kind of what sort of experience Google Glass is actually going to bring. And as you watch the video, it's important to know that the video is actually being taken by somebody wearing Google Glass. And if you kind of need to pay attention to the upper right-hand corner, because that's really where the experience is unfolding. So with that, let's roll video.
Okay, Glass, record a video.
This is it. We're on in 2 minutes. Glass, record a video.
Stay delicious and time.
Alroy.
Alroy.
Google jellyfish.
So here's Sergey wearing Google Glass on the subway. And these are going to make him and others superhuman. They're going to give us capabilities that we never really had before. But when you see him, you might go, superhuman? I don't know. Is he really superhuman? Maybe he looks like a super dork. But I actually think he looks super cool. And, well, let me just show you. So I'm super psyched that we, Resource, just received our very own Google Glass this week to design some really cool software. Okay, Glass, take picture. So what's interesting about Google Glass, so there's a little screen right here, and it's the equivalent of a 25-inch monitor 8 feet away. Now, there's a lot of sort of new things that are going to come of this, and there's already been privacy issues you probably read about with the casinos. There's going to be security and safety, and there's going to be a whole host of other things. But what's interesting is to think about is when this takes off, it won't just be Sergey on the subway. There could be millions, there could be tens of millions of people wearing a device that actually will be interesting because it's going to change our society in so many ways. It's going to change our society from an eyes down culture back to one that's eyes up. Have you noticed with our phones, we've become an eyes down culture? These could really restore eye contact in our society again. It will bring a whole host of dimensions. And the question is, as a brand, as a company, will you be prepared to reach consumers one at a time in a personalized, stream-filled world? That's what you got to be ready for. I encourage everybody to have a look at these. We will have them in the Innovation Lounge, and our innovation experts will show you how they work. And now I want to go a little bit further into the future and talk about smart production for a minute. Smart production, where supply really does meet demand with zero waste and self-learning systems. I think every company would like to figure this out, where markets can truly be one person, or they can actually begin very economically with one person. And an example of that really here and now, why this concept is a little bit further out, it's actually beginning today. And it can be best exemplarized by 3D printing. Are you guys familiar with 3D printing? Have you heard the expression? You're starting to see it on PBS and NPR and a few other places. But what's really cool about 3D printing is consumers are producing their own wares because they can. So a 3D printer is roughly the size of a piece of luggage. Some a little bigger, some a little smaller, roughly $2,000, coming down in price. We also have one in the Innovation Lounge, so make sure to check it out. But it allows us to print a three-dimensional product in over 100 different materials with no tooling, no molds, and all of these objects, from tools and vases to tennis shoe insoles and tennis shoe sneaker treads and jewelry, all of these are being printed. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but we actually did it this year at Resource. So we give away an award every year. We call them the Excellent Awards, and it's XLNT for short, which is what this three-dimensional object represents. But instead of having them fabricated, which we would typically do, where they would be sent out, the design would be sent out, the material would be cut, it would be assembled, it would be adhered, it would be painted, it would be urethaned, it would have to dry, and it would take hours and hours and hours. Instead, what we did, we designed it, and we sent the file to an off-site 3D printer, and in 4 hours, they produced 22 awards, saving 128 hours of labor. It's fascinating. So it's probably, you're like, how does that work? How does that work? So what I want to do really quickly is roll video to show you how it works.
3D printing is this amazing new technology where you can take a 3D digital file and with the click of a button, use that file to create an actual physical 3D part. So how does a 3D printer work? The first step is to get a 3D file, and you can get your 3D file in one of two ways. One, you can simply download the file from the internet. The second way is you can design your own 3D part. The software is going to slice your part up into layers. By building a part layer by layer, you're able to create a plastic part in 3 dimensions, and the possibilities are limited only by your imagination. People will create their next big invention, or engineers and designers create small production runs or little prototypes. Teachers can use it to print out teaching aids. If a teacher is doing a little lesson on a ship, they can actually print out a sailing ship and pass it around the class, and people print out things for around the house. iPhone cases are pretty big. You break a towel hook, you can print out a new one. We want to make 3D printers at a price that the average person can afford and also easy to use. We're already seeing late stage early adoption of 3D printing, but for me the exciting thing is what's to come.
So how might this manifest in your business or in your life? So I just paint a picture for you. So imagine you have a Weber grill and the handle breaks on that grill. You could do one of 3 things in this near future. You could go to Weber.com and you could order that replacement part. And Weber would use 3D printing at their own facility to produce this product on demand without having an inventory, a warehouse full of inventory. Or 2, you could actually go to Weber.com and download the file that they make available to you, and you send it to an off-site 3D printer and have that product printed for you. Or 3, if you're an early adopter, you would actually download the file. You might modify it. Maybe you put your own insignia into it, you change the design a little bit, and then you print it on your own 3D printer with 0 waste and maximum immediate gratification. That's how that might play out. So I want to talk briefly about how consumer expectations continue to rise for personalization, and then the 4 big enablers that are driving it, and then recognizing the reality that many companies who are in less tech-centric industries are kind of falling behind because all of this is happening so quickly. These 4 things, mobility, social discovery, connected products, big data, I want to hit kind of each one of them. So not all of you will recognize this, but I hope most of you know, this is a phone. And in my household of 11 people, we had one of these, Katie, you'll remember, hanging on the kitchen wall with a 20-foot cord, and the only way to have a private conversation was to drag that cord into another room. So that was a phone. And that's why I was so excited when this came out in the early 90s. I was like, yes, a chance to actually go wherever you wanted to have a real private conversation. And that was a phone. But this, not a phone. Why are we calling it a phone? It is so much more than a phone. Matter of fact, most smartphones have as many as 18 embedded sensors. It's like having NASA-like capabilities in the palm of your hand 24/7. They have been tragically misnamed. I propose a new name. Weapon of personal empowerment. These weapons of personal empowerment have taught us so much as consumers, to be in control of our content, to be in control of our experiences, and that things like context, even though we don't use that word a lot as consumers, that it matters. Time of day, where I'm standing, what's going on in the world, my past behaviors, all those things. And Dan Schuster is going to really delve deep on context for us later today. But mobility is huge because for the first time ever last year, smartphones outsold PCs globally. It's huge. And today, our mobile media consumption is 3 times of what it was just in 2009. And if you look at all the traffic coming to e-commerce sites, 20% of that traffic is now coming from mobile devices. In 2011, that was just 5%. That's a huge shift. If we look at social discovery engines, they're actually allowing us to find and discover things that we didn't even know we needed or wanted. It's amazing. Social discovery engines are putting the power of curation in the hands of consumers. We know about Pinterest. There's 28 million monthly users that are using it as a browsing and a filtering site. We know that Instagram sold for $1 billion with no revenue and 15 people, and has amassed 100 million users that are engaging, co-creating, and sharing every day. And you may be less familiar with the third one I want to highlight, unless you have a teenager in your house. Anybody have teenagers living in your house? Yes. So you may know of Wanilo. You might want to say Wanello, but it's supposed to be want, need, love. And thanks to my 14-year-old daughter, Riley, I now know of this site. And it's less of a magazine. It's actually more like a catalog. And so you actually curate all your own products here, and they're all shoppable. You can buy from this. And what's happening is this actually has grown in the last 6 months from 1 million users to 8 million users. The average user spending 50 minutes per day curating their favorite products, and I can attest my own daughter doing this. And these have actually become the new wish lists. Wish lists are not just for birthdays or holidays anymore, and this is Riley's wish list, and I emphasize wish. She's in the back of the room. Hi, babe. And because it scrolls for 20 days, but it brings together all the brands she loves from Pink and Abercrombie and American Eagle and eBay, and they're all there. And for Riley and other teens like her, it's their own personalized mall. There will be 16 billion devices connected to the internet by 2015. We refer to these as connected products. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're standing in your own home, you're looking down the hallway, and that place where there should really be a beautiful piece of art, there isn't, because there's a small, gray, institutional, ugly, plastic-looking thermostat, right? Don't you always wonder, like, why are they right where you want to put a piece of art, and why have they been so ugly for so long? Well, that's different, and that's changed thanks to Nest. And Nest is so cool and so beautiful, but what's amazing about it, we installed one of these in our home, is that it learns your family's behavior, and it adjusts accordingly. It's smart. And what I love especially about this is that it comes with this app so that you actually can adjust the heat without getting out of bed. And if you're going to be away for vacation, you can set the thermostat to away, and then you can use the app to actually, when you're close to home, to reset so that it quickly restores to the temperature that you want it to be when you arrive home. It's amazing. And the Consumer Electronics Show had this and many other connected products earlier this year, and what we know for sure is that our lives are going to be infiltrated with products like Nest in categories ranging from beauty and bikes to automobiles and appliances. We're going to see more and more of these in our lives. Speaking of infiltrating our lives, Starbucks has found a lot of ways of infiltrating our lives. Who's a fan of this app? I love this app. I wish we created this app, but somebody else did. And but here's what I love about it, actually, is you can download the free music. You don't have to take that little card and remember to do it later. You can buy, obviously, with the app. It rewards you instantly. You get that little gold star trickling down into the cup. You can reload the card. You can create e-gifts instantly, and on and on and on. But what will be different in the future about this app is that Starbucks will know that you've arrived in their store and you're standing in line, and they will prompt you to ask you if you'd like to order your favorite drink while you wait in line. That, again, is context. The topic Shus will dive into more. But it's also enabled by this handy little buzzword, big data. That's what's making it possible. And big data is a huge topic, and thankfully, we have Shailesh Rao. Did I get that right? From Google, who will be here to talk about this more today. But what's important to know about big data, it's often referred to as the 3 V's, or the big V's. It's important because of social, because of mobile, because of connected products. We have more data volume, we have more data velocity, and we have more data variability than we have ever had. So this is huge. It's a huge opportunity for marketers because you're finally going to be able to deliver the personalized experiences you've always wanted to. And this big data trend is contributing to a massive shift in dollars. And Gartner asserts that by 2017, the CMOs will actually spend more on IT than CIOs. So big data will truly be a big enabler. What's happening here isn't just that technology is growing and changing, it's accelerating at a pace we've never seen before as human beings. And we believe that also when you look at this trend of demassification where all things mass markets, mass production, mass media, we just kind of rolled it up as mass phenomenon, is continuing its slow and steady decline. But what's really cool about it is at the intersection is the tipping point that we're referring to as mass personalization. Now, let that sink in for a second. Mass personalization, you're thinking, Kelly, isn't that an oxymoron? And yes, it is, actually. But what's cool about it is that we now finally have the technology that will enable the personalized experiences that we always wanted, and it's now also economically viable for every brand. And a lot of companies are figuring this out and making personalization a strategic imperative. Matter of fact, the CEO at P&G has declared that personalization is at the center of the vision for the company. Why would he do that? Because he knows that it creates business value. He knows that it will strengthen differentiation. It will be harder to copy when a brand has mastered personalization, and it will also make sure that consumers are less likely to seek out a competitor. There's a lot more research on this topic. A McKinsey partner recently published a lot of research that says that actually when brands focus on personalization, they can deliver up to 5 to 8 times the ROI from the marketing spend and lift sales as much as 10%. So I want to just give you a handful of examples of other brands who are doing this. So Warby Parker has totally figured out with a cool product, the right price point, but what they also figured out is that they're allowing the consumer to actually try the glasses onto their own face using cool virtual online tools. CVS is getting personal, and we've been their partner helping them to figure it out, giving the consumer a pharmacy command center where the consumer has total transparency to and complete control of all of their prescriptions, not to mention all their rewards and deals. We've also helped Mark and Graham get personal. This is a Williams-Sonoma company you might not really know about yet, but Williams-Sonoma realized that they had a growing business of personalized products with Williams-Sonoma Pottery Barn and West Elm and others, and that there was actually a market opportunity for a brand with an entire strategy based around personalization. We've helped Wendy's get personal over the last year. If you want to eat within 500 calories, we can tell you what your options are. We've personalized their menu down to the pickle. Remove the bread, we can tell you what happens. Add a patty, we can tell you the implications of that. And what's super cool in some test markets, now you don't even have to take out your wallet to make the transaction possible. eBay is getting personal. eBay. Their recent relaunch was considered the biggest relaunch in their history. Why? Because every single user gets an entirely different homepage. And last, a global luxury retailer getting personal? Absolutely. Burberry, arguably one of the most tech-savvy retailers in the world, not only lets you customize its iconic trench, but what's really cool this year is they embedded chips into their bags and into their coats that can activate content, unique content, and especially content that shows a video of your own name being engraved on the nameplate, and then that nameplate is also actually sewn into the bag or the coat. Burberry's getting personal. So everything's getting personal. Everything's getting personal in business and in every aspect of life. For me personally, I just had my DNA decoded. I'm a little terrified because I haven't gotten the results back yet, but I'm about to peer into my biological future. But for you, there's a lot of big questions with personalization, and we want to tackle them today. We want to help think about what are the consumer shifts that are happening, and how will you reach consumers in this data-filled, stream-filled world? And how can you surprise and delight one customer at a time and do it at a big scale? And how do you break down the silos in your company to get people aligned and to tackle ambitious projects? And last, how in this world where we want and need to open up to be better, we have to be better corporate citizens and actually to be worthy of the loyalty we seek. We're going to tackle these and many other questions today. But I hope what I've at least begun to hit the high points on is that personalization is much more than a tactic. It is much more than a technology. It should really be the centerpiece of your vision and your strategy. And if there's one thing I would like to say about the future personalization, I know for sure, is that this expression will be a welcome relic of the past, only to be replaced with this one. One size fits one. Thank you.